Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Content Melbourne. My name is Mark Welker, and behind the scenes, I've got Justin Meneguzzi and Gemma Bauman collecting comments and shoving them through to me as we go. Before we get started, I want to make an acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of this nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present and those who may be attending the session today. If you're just joining us for the first time, Content Melbourne is a community for industry and emerging content creators. We do a range of digital and in-person events throughout the year. You can check out our LinkedIn page for a bunch more details on us, and follow us on all the usual social channels. I want to make a quick shout out to Team Content, who are sponsoring us today. So, whoops, let me just get that correct. Just give me 2 ticks. There we go. Got the right one now. I want to say a quick shout out to Team Content, who are sponsoring today's event and for supporting us over the years. So today, we've got our 5th and final session for our Content in Crisis series. It looks at how content plans have changed during this crisis. Today we're going to be talking about pivoting products and how you can adapt your go-to-market strategies with new techniques, adding things into your pivot plan while keeping your team connected. We're going to start with the basics of product marketing, sort of defining a little bit what the context is, and then we're going to weave in questions from the live stream as we go. So if you've got something you want to ask, please get into the chat, and the guys will pick up those comments and send them through to me. For now, I'd like to introduce Tania Clark, a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Atlassian.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'm a senior PMM at Atlassian. I've been at Atlassian for the last 1.5 years, and previous to that, I worked at a startup for almost 4 years. So I look after the Jira Service Desk product, which is part of Atlassian's remote collaboration software.
And for those that don't know too much about what Atlassian does, give us the elevator pitch.
Sure. So Atlassian does create software for developers mostly. So Jira software enables teams to work on an agile basis for their software development. And we also have a range of other products across this kind of software development lifecycle.
Great. Okay. And I'd like to introduce Angela Catalan, from the Director of Global Product Marketing at Nearmap. Hi, Angela.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Nearmap and what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Nearmap is a location intelligence, it's geospatial and location intelligence company based out of Sydney. We've been around for over 10 years, started out in Perth. What we do is we basically fly airplanes all around Australia every single day of the year except Christmas Day to capture high resolution imagery and location content of the world and serve that to customers, businesses, so that they can make, clever business critical decisions from their office without leaving the office.
Oh yeah. So I imagine this sort of thing has become even more important post COVID-19, or while we're still sort of in that phase.
Yeah, absolutely. We are considered an essential service in Australia, in the US, and basically wherever we fly as well. So it's a privilege to be part of that journey.
So Angela, let's start off with product marketing. How do you define product marketing, and how does it relate to content?
Good question. I get that asked. I get asked that a lot. So this is the way I define product marketing. Product marketing is a strategic function of product that works alongside product managers to define what needs to be built, who we need to build this product for, and how to talk about the products in a way that resonates with our customers. Then we also define a lot of the go-to-market strategy. So where do we go to market? How do we go to market? How do we position and message the product in a way that makes sense to customers?
And when you say customers, are your main customers B2B, B2C? Is product marketing mostly external focus, or is there an internal focus to it as well?
It's both. So it really depends on how where you are at in a product lifecycle. Obviously, if you're still early stages, you have a lot of internal communications that needs to happen, a lot of documentation, and of course, when you do launch products, then our focus shifts towards external communications and content.
And Tanya, tell us, how does product marketing differ for your role there at Atlassian? Is it pretty much the same?
It all looks pretty different, and it's been different at the companies I've worked across. So Atlassian, the product that I work on, is in a very different phase to what I've worked on in the past. So at my previous company, I was the only product marketer, so I worked across like a broader range of styles and tactics. But at Atlassian, it looks like so we're very much in the early phase of trying to acquire market share for my product area.
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of more like brand awareness, more top of funnel acquisition. So product marketing tends to shift, like Angela said, where the product is and the stage of the company where it's at as well. So we kind of just shift as to what the company needs at the time.
And how does content play into that? Like, what's the main use of content in a marketing sense, or what kinds of content sort of come to are most going across your desk?
Yeah, so for me, content is such an enabler of product education.
Mm-hmm.
I work on a product that doesn't have kind of a sales team selling it. So it's a self-service. You come in, you go to the website, you sign up for a trial, and then it kicks off your onboarding journey. So content being available to customers to self-educate and go through the process and go through their own setup is such a key enabler. And it's a great way to scale a product, particularly for a global user base. And particularly during this time when people are working remote, they need to be able to self-serve and access the content as it requires in their journey.
And so before, if we sort of look at product marketing as it has been for a number of years, what's your sort of before COVID day to day? Like, what are the challenges that are sort of unique to product marketing for you?
I feel like product marketing, it always runs like pre-COVID, post-COVID, has always run super, super lean.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a team and individual that are so used to working with such few resources and being able to optimize like our current day-to-day and kind of prioritize like what we need to work on at that particular time. So for me, and I think for a lot of product marketers, we're kind of used to just this scrappy way of working where we're used to getting shit out the door and not having a ton of like marketing resources or internal resources to do so.
And do you feel the same way, Angela?
For me, if you're talking about specifically around, COVID and that how that's impacted the way we work, not much has changed for us. And but to start with, yes, we are lean, we are scrappy, we know how to get things done really, really quickly. We just need to find ways to get things done. But day to day for us at Nearmap, not much has changed. But I think a lot has changed for our customers. And that really affects the way. I guess influence the way we take products to market, the type of content that we now need to produce compared to what it was before, and yeah, that's sort of how things change for us.
And is product marketing mostly below the line, if you want to use those terms, content, because it's so your customer is so specific and quite hard to find? Like, I mean, obviously you could run ads on TV for Nearmap, but there would be probably a lot of wastage.
That's so true. I guess the execution, you can be as creative as you want based on how much budget you've got and the time frame that you have to work with. But I would say a lot of what we do is behind the scene, like how do you position a product in a way that makes sense, that would make you shine against your competitors? How do we message? How do we talk to the right users and personas? How does talking to the buyers is different from talking to the users, for example?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that foundational work is something that we own as product marketers, and I guess that hasn't changed as much. As a matter of fact, I think because we're now so remote, we're all working from our own homes. It's more important that we get that right through the remote channels that we have available to us.
And Angela, how is your team set up? Like, are you remote and the rest of your team is in Australia, or how you're sort of set up?
Yeah. So we are scattered. My team is based in Sydney. We have the team based in, where is he? In San Jose, in LA, around that area. We also have a teammates, I guess, co-workers in New York and Salt Lake City as well. So we're everywhere. And so we're used to working online, I guess, and having this early morning starts just to make sure that we collaborate. But I think what's changed for us is about the documentation. How do we then, more effectively transfer this knowledge to the internal stakeholders for sales enablement, for content pieces, for all the content marketing programs that we have in place, or we are planning funding on, I guess.
Yeah. And Tania, how remote, where is your sort of core product team based?
Yep, so I'm in all the product marketers are based out of mostly San Francisco, Austin, and Boston. So my team specifically that I work with is in San Fran and Boston, but the product team is based out of mostly Sydney. But I actually work with a fully remote team across Australia as well. So I have a product manager counterpart in Melbourne, a product designer in Melbourne. So similar to Angela's point, like documentation is kind of ingrained in the Atlassian way of life, and it may feel arduous at the time, but it's how you get people on the same page, and it's how you scale out kind of information in a more like lateral way. So we're a team that's really heavy into documentation. We obviously use Confluence a lot, dog food our own products, and a lot of our plans, thinking, thoughts, all of the contents and background goes into a page, so we can easily disperse that across time zones.
And for your customers, what would be the traditional way that they would interact with your marketing, your content, let's say?
Yeah, very few customers will actually have a face-to-face or touch point with an Atlassian sales or customer success manager. It's all purely, we've enabled kind of our global customer base through the community. We've got a lot of community leaders that will run discussion groups. The community is really, really active. They have a lot of threads and people kind of help each other. And we also have a huge online documentation system where people self-serve and they can pretty much Google anything. It has really strong SEO. It's often one of the first things that comes up on Google but when people are typing in like specific help that they need, any Atlassian product.
And so sort of going into a sort of post-COVID, or at least, dealing with COVID, does that mean that nothing's changed for you? Like, as in the way that you work, you're obviously already pretty remote and sort of used to this online environment. Have you had to change the way you've talked about your product or the way you've talked to consumers?
Not at all. It's almost no change because we're such a heavily self-service product. People enable themselves, and we run webinars often to help people because they are kind of craving that face-to-face contact. But not much. Our tactics and our strategies, I guess, how we access customers and how we acquire customers hasn't changed at all.
And have you noticed a change in your customers, the type of information or the type of assistance that they're looking for in these self-service environments?
I think they are at a stage where they're trying to utilize like the product for what it is and just trying to expand the use case to get more value from it. So they're looking, often our customers kind of come to us with ways in which they can expand. So it's like, well, I use Service Desk for the IT team, but how can I use it for my HR team? Because they're all dispersed too. So they need ways to use the remote collaboration across their organization as well. And the products are so cost effective, they're often looking at utilizing it with the software that they have today instead of going and acquiring a different software package.
Yeah. So they're sort of doubling down, trying to focus in, use the same tool, but use it more broadly for more. Is that because they're trying to save money, or is it just because it's such a complicated online space now with everything being online and everyone being online that they have to sort of you can only have so many systems in place at one time?
Yeah, and it's so hard, particularly for enterprises, to introduce new software. There's such a steep learning curve if they are going to go through that purchase process again. So if they already have a tool like Jira or Confluence or Jira Service Desk, then they're just going to try utilize what they have and use what their teams are familiar with as well. Because COVID happened almost overnight. Like we were told that we couldn't come back to the office the next day. So these IT teams have kind of gone and scrambled around and tried to figure out how to enable their teams and give them the same type of service and the same access to the systems that they would usually have in an office.
Yeah, and I mean programs like Zoom and Google and a bunch of other places, they're sort of bolting on these new additions to their product. They're kind of saying, "Oh, now you can use it for that." Is Atlassian in that mode where they're sort of looking, okay, so if you're going to use this product and it's quite firmly entrenched in your company, we're going to make it more useful, or is it more we just need to get the basics right and focus on the core?
I think it's so at least I can't speak to the whole of Atlassian, but at least in my product area, we're definitely focusing on the basics and the foundational use cases and jobs to be done that our customers require from our products. And I think more generally, we'll probably see this trend across a lot of product roadmaps and a lot of products that they've kind of bloated out too quick with their features, and you see it a lot. They're trying to acquire market share really quickly, and their core service often gets neglected. So I think internally, that's something our product managers are really conscious of, is just making sure that it does what it's meant to do really, really well.
Yep. Angela, let's go back to you. You were saying that you guys are sort of used to this heavy documentation environment as well. What's changed for you over the last couple of months in your sort of the tactics that you're using?
That's a good question as well. For us, I think I noticed two things, maybe three. I'm gonna start with two, and then maybe add another one in there. But I think I've noticed COVID has changed the way salespeople sell.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like and Nearmap is a heavily sales organization. We rely on our salespeople to go out there and sell to business decision makers, and often the sales process is quite long. Now that the face-to-face engagement's been taken away from them, it is about, well, how do we deliver the message succinctly over Zoom? How do we have the right pitch decks in place? Do we have the right materials in place? And now we are in a position where we have to rethink sales enablement. Do we have the right tools, right content for the salespeople to sell effectively? I think that's one definite area that we are focusing on right now, just because COVID's changed the way salespeople sell, which kind of forced us to revisit what we have. The second thing is around the hallway conversations. Again, if that's been taken away from us. That's where we build rapport. That's where we start, build influence. That's where we kind of pick up on the wins and losses, right? As product marketers, we care so much about whether our product's been successful throughout the different touch points of sales engagement, and getting that feedback has been it's a very important part of our role, and again, we don't get to do that. So you go, well, how can we capture those things more effectively? Do we have the right tools? Should we build dashboards to enable that insights to trickle through? I think that, and if I have to add one more, it would be around how rethinking the script and on how we can educate better. Mm-hmm. How we can educate our customers better, how we can educate the users better, as well as the internal stakeholders that we have to deal with, the sales people, the marketing teams as well. It was quite an interesting experience launching a brand new product that we've been working on for a long time, completely offline. The past 4 months, we've been working on the launch of Nearmap AI, which is a product that just came out last month. that was done 100% remote. And so that definitely was a challenge, but we've made it through.
And I mean, I know what you mean about those hallway conversations, particularly for internal team, letting people know getting everyone on side, obviously working in product development and product teams, everyone has to sort of be moving in the one direction at once. So it's sort of like corralling opinion and whatnot. What have you found works in substituting that rapport? Like, what can we get across the same thing in many Zoom meetings, or have you found a better way that also fits into our day better?
It's a really good one. We have Slack.
Yep.
Slack for that. We have a friendly Slack channel. We have extra Slack channel now that is all about Nearmappers working from home. It's making this remote working experience a little bit more fun for everybody. So we do have that Slack channel that we use quite heavily, and of course you have the Zooms. We do have regular Zoom coffees and wine and Friday wine time that we have been using to build and continue that connection with people that we need. It's not the same though, I must say. I do miss the face-to-face sometimes.
Yeah. And are there any tools that you've sort of doubled down on and used a lot more over this period for communication, either with customers or with teams?
Internally, so let me start with internal. I think we've doubled down on the use of Dropbox paper. We are a Dropbox powerhouse at Nearmap. We save everything on Dropbox, but we also document everything on Dropbox paper, which is a product that we absolutely love. So we double down on the usage of that. You'll definitely see, I think, a lot more chatter in Slack and a lot more usage on Zoom. I think I have dedicated 2 days of Zoom call days where I don't do anything else but get on Zoom. So that's probably that. In terms of external facing tools, I think a lot of sales people use, they rely heavily on sales automation tools, and
Yep.
that hasn't changed too much. It really is about, do we even have to write content in there to help them do what they do best? And it's basically, retooling them is what we're focusing on now.
And what about you, Tanya? Have you sort of noticed that other than Zoom, which pretty much we're all done with by now, have you sort of noticed that you're sort of leaning towards particular tools to get this communication done?
Yeah, I think more than ever I've used Slack like a lot more just for that quick kind of chat. So Atlassian's a bit of a company, like we're fairly anti-email. Like if someone sends you an email, you're like, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you Slack me? We're a heavily Slack-based company, and I think that's just probably increased. And I think like we use Zoom internally a lot. Like it's how I've always communicated with my team members. Like we were previously seeing each other every 3 months, but now with COVID, like there's no kind of timeline. So that is a bit tough, and I agree with Angela. Like it isn't the same. Like I think that face-to-face communication and how PMMs kind of learn what's going on in the product and keep up to date internally is through a lot of context and informality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what COVID's done in this whole remote situation has caused us to be a bit more formal about kind of capturing that knowledge and like staying up to date. So I do a lot more check-in meetings on Zoom, like 15-minute type calls than I would ever. I would usually just kind of stop by someone's desk and ask what's going on.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm doing more than ever a lot more documentation just because things can kind of get misconstrued. So if you just have it on a page, then it's a lot easier for someone else to pick up on what you're trying.
I'm going to add one tool in there that I left off.
Yeah.
I really love this one, and I think every content people would love this too. It's called Miro. It's a virtual whiteboarding tool. We as product people, we love whiteboarding and workshopping ideas and things, and we don't have access to common whiteboards now. That moved to a virtual whiteboard, and this tool Miro is spreading like wildfire at Nearmap. It is a tool. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Who makes Miro? Is it like an independent app?
Yeah, Miro.
Okay, cool. That sounds good. Yeah, product teams do love their boards, don't they? I don't know how they could be possibly surviving without cards right now. The index card market must have plunged into negative territory.
And the post-its and everything like
Yeah,
that.
that's right. The
Yeah.
environment is breathing a sigh of relief, probably. Trello's probably making a lot of money. So let's talk about the future and this idea around pivoting products. Let's start with you, Tania. Obviously, people are thinking, okay, so how does my product meet this new environment? Like, how does it make sense in this new context? Sort of, what's going to help us chart a conversation in the future in it with our products?
Yeah. Tough question, big question. I think for me, like when PMMs are in a company and they're in a heavy execution mode, the number one thing that often gets neglected is the messaging. And it's because it's so intangible, it's often so easy to discard as something that we will just do later, that we'll just figure it out, we'll figure out how to talk to our customers. And they often focus on like more breadth with their messaging. So it actually dilutes the message because it becomes really nonsense. So I think with COVID, and my hope for the future of product marketing is that we focus solely on the message that will cut through the noise. Because, now more than ever, our customers are looking at shaving down costs. They're probably losing some team members here and there with redundancies and things like that. So I think having a really crisp message and understanding where you sit in the market, understanding your positioning, and doing more of that foundational work in this kind of downtime of COVID is really crucial for the future of any product that's going to go to market.
Yeah, it's not a good time to have your clients being unsure of what your core proposition is, isn't it? Because, right now in board meetings across companies, they're having discussions where you're not there. In a way, you're not like there sitting next to them to put up your hands and go, hey, actually our product does do that, or we can help. It's more that if people don't have confidence why your product exists in their sort of product mix or in their marketing mix, then they might not keep it on the table.
100%. And I think we're already seeing that people are looking at the bottom line, and often like IT and tooling and software takes the first hit because, we all get excited and want a tool that does everything for us. But when something like a recession hits Australia, then, they're going to be looking at their bottom line and cutting where they can.
Yeah. And what about you, Angela? The future of sort of product marketing, what should we be focusing on?
I think it's the same thing we've been focusing on, customers, just making sure that you're across all the changes that they're going through so that you can better reflect the messaging and exactly what Tanya said, in the positioning of your product. One thing I realized is, so Nearmap is built for remote work. We are, enabling remote site visits for a lot of our customers. And this COVID health pandemic unlocked a lot of different use cases for us. And how do we feed that back into the product roadmap, and is that still relevant, and how does that change the narrative? So I think day to day is still the same. We need to represent the customer base, the market that we know best, and continue to do our discovery so that we can do our job.
It must be difficult. Like you were saying, the use cases must have gone through the roof. There's so many things that we had as a society sort of taken off the table as, that probably wouldn't work. Telehealth. That sounds really difficult. We're probably not going to be ready to do that for years and years and years. And now suddenly we're doing it, and then suddenly, this actually isn't so bad. Sort of works. Do you find that it's hard to stay focused when there's so many new use cases coming in? Like, is it is it tantalizing to kind of someone go, hey, we've suddenly realized that a portion of our market now has this behavior. Can we bring that in? How do you stay focused?
That's a really good question too, and I think huge alignment with product management is the key to that, right? Ensuring that you're capturing the right information and the insights and feeding them back to the product team, but also ensuring that they have all the information that they need, so that we're not reacting to every request, because that's the last thing you want. You don't want to be releasing a feature for one use case. You want to make sure that that use case is a good representation of the market's use case, and building products that way. So reducing the noise in the process of capturing these insights, I think, is a key here.
And Tania, finally for you, what's on the horizon, I guess, for your ways of working? Do you feel like that in a couple of months' time, if things return to normal, that your job was not going to change that much, or that you're forever changed in some way? Your ways of working is forever changed from this?
Yeah, I think for me personally, like I've been living in a capital city, you spend so much time commuting, and you don't realize like how much energy that takes up in a day. So you kind of learn to be like, I've really enjoyed, like I have a lot of early morning calls with Boston and San Francisco. So being able to just roll out of bed and like start having start doing your morning from home is great. So I think for me, like I would like to work from home a little bit more, but just as equally would like to have that office interaction. I think having that taken away the last couple of months does make you realize how much that like team camaraderie is essential to doing a job.
Yeah, it feels like that we're not at the end of the road to so many of these solutions. Like product teams have worked so well being co-located or being quite having like a simulated team environment, and we've quickly sort of pulled the rug from underneath that, and we haven't quite worked out it yet, but we're working towards a solution. Probably in a year's time, we'll know exactly what product marketing actually looks like, or the new team environment.
Yeah.
I want to say, I think that's what we've got time for. Do you guys want to add anything? Have I sort of covered that product marketing, the pivot enough? Do you guys feel like you have anything to add there?
No, we covered it.
Great. If anyone does have any questions that they didn't want to answer in the chat, please send them through to us. You can get hold of us in all the usual ways on Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it. If you can't find us, then you're probably doing something wrong. I want to thank our guest today, Tania Clark, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Atlassian, and Angela Catalan, Director of Global Product Marketing at Nearmap. Our next session, I don't know, I think it's going to be in July sometime. So this is the actual final episode in our Content in Crisis series. We feel like we've covered a lot of ground during this time, and we just need to take a step back and sort of work out where we go next. So stay in touch. We'll have a few announcements over the next week about our next event. But for now, thanks for watching. The full recording will be up soon if you missed the beginning of it. Otherwise, see you later.
Thank you.